What's up guys, Miles here with 9 to 5 Mac, and the time has finally come. Here we've got the iPhone 12 Pro in Pacific Blue, and we're going to do an unboxing and go over all of its top features. We've got a lot to cover. But first, a word from our sponsor.
iMazing is the Swiss Army knife for iOS device management for Mac and Windows. Use it to make time machine style wireless backups and easily transfer documents, media, and content. Explore system files, access device and battery diagnostics, and more. And here's what's important. All your data stays local on your computer or the drive of your choice. Backups can be encrypted for maximum privacy. With iMazing, you can dig into your iPhone or iPad's backup history and browse your photo library without syncing and export multiple versions. You can even save and export WhatsApp chats and iOS messages, and it's all ready for Apple's latest software and hardware. It's no wonder why iMazing is the most popular all-purpose iPhone and iPad manager for Mac and PC. For a limited time, get 30% off iMazing by clicking the link in the description. Special thanks to iMazing for sponsoring 9 to 5 Mac.
For the first time in a long while, we're getting an iPhone unboxing experience that's a tad bit shorter than what you may be used to, and you can tell before you even open up the phone. The iPhone 12 Pro has a substantially smaller box than the iPhone 11 does, and that's because the iPhone is missing a few things in the box this time around. Firstly, we're not getting headphones or a power adapter in the box this year, and this is because Apple wants to support the environment by bringing down e-waste. Most people buying this phone will probably already have a charger and headphones, but it does kind of sting knowing that you're not getting all of the essentials, or what a lot of people would consider essentials in an $1,000 smartphone. As far as what you're getting in the box, you're getting the iPhone 12 Pro itself, an Apple Lightning to USB-C cable, an Apple sticker with some documentation, and that's it. Arguably, the most standout feature of the iPhone 12 lineup this year is the design. Apple decided to give us a throwback to the beloved flat-edged iPhone design, and I'm here for it. Here I've got the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and the Max is a little bit bigger, but the 12 Pro feels much better as far as the overall feel in the hand. The 12 Pro is also just a gram heavier than the 11 Pro, so there isn't a noticeable difference in weight. The 12 Pro uses the same stainless steel finish as the 11 Pro as well, so there's been no drop in quality with this design shift. I personally never owned an iPhone 5, so I never had a true appreciation for this design that a lot of other people do, but when getting my hands on the device, I can safely say I can see what the hype was all about. With this design change, there's also been a slight improvement in the screen-to-body ratio. The iPhone 11 Pro featured an 82.1% screen-to-body ratio, and the 12 Pro now has an 86% screen-to-body ratio, which is only about a 4% increase, but you can somewhat notice the change when looking dead on at the phone. The Midnight Green Squad is no more as we move on to the west, with Pacific Blue. I like this color a lot compared to Midnight Green. It's much more pronounced, and you can always tell it's a blue color no matter what angle or lighting situation you may be in. That's not something I could really say for the Midnight Green 11 Pro, and as a videographer, it's been oftentimes quite difficult trying to capture the essence of the Midnight Green color on camera. That isn't a problem that I have with the Pacific Blue color at all. It's not a loud color, and it isn't a flat color either. It's somewhere in the middle. Overall though, I'd say this was a great color choice from Apple to complement the sleek matte frosted glass back on the 12 Pro. The display has undoubtedly been a big point of contention here for the 12 Pro, as the screen has now jumped from a 5.8-inch screen size on the 11 Pro to 6.1 inches here on the 12 Pro, which coincides with the increased screen-to-body ratio I mentioned earlier. I personally prefer this bump in the screen size. It gives me the perfect feel in the hand for usability personally, and it makes viewing content just a tad bit more immersive. Regardless of the size though, viewing content on the 12 Pro is naturally very enjoyable. The 12 Pro has the same Super Retina XDR OLED display found on the 11 Pro, but this year we're getting a slight bump in resolution, with the display now having a resolution of 1170 by 2532 compared to 1125 by 2436 from last year's 11 Pro. I can't say I can actually tell a difference between the 12 Pro and the 11 Pro as far as resolution, but as expected from an $1,000 flagship, the display is absolutely gorgeous. It gets sufficiently bright outdoors, the color reproduction is excellent, and it generally speaking has that pop that you get from OLED displays. And while we all, and when I say we, I mean the nerds, surely would have hoped for a high refresh rate display, this will do until next year. The iPhone 11 Pro already had the toughest glass in a smartphone. At least Apple claimed it did, but I guess the toughest glass still needed to get tougher, because now we have what Apple calls a ceramic shield for the iPhone 12 Pro's display. The ceramic shield's constructed with the use of nanoceramic crystals, which are harder than most metals, and then Apple's team managed to turn that into transparent glass for the iPhone. Apple actually brags about how they were able to develop a formula for these crystals that maximizes the strength of the ceramic material while staying optically clear. And unfortunately for you all, but fortunately for me, I will not be putting that to the test. But Apple claims you're going to be getting 4 times better drop performance with this new ceramic shield. Drop performance is a very vague word, and so I would just say treat this phone just as carefully as you would a previous generation iPhone model. It's still glass at the end of the day, and glass is not invincible. A cool new feature we're seeing here on the iPhone 12 Pro, or hearing rather, is an updated lock screen sound. Let's take a listen. That doesn't matter to 99% of people, but it's definitely something I noticed when using the 12 Pro, as that's a sound that Apple hasn't updated in a while. Coming hot off the heels of the A13 Bionic and the iPhone 11s is the A14 Bionic, and this processor upgrade is significant in multiple ways. It's firstly Apple's first CPU to feature a 5nm process, which essentially means the processor is going to consume less power while simultaneously offering much better performance than the A13. There are so many ways in which the A14 brings improvements for all areas of the experience. That 16-core neural engine is going to improve deep fusion performance for photo processing, and the A14 even allows for 4K HDR DolbyVision video recording, which I'll get into later. When running benchmarks in Geekbench 5, you can see that the A14 Bionic chip brings some significant performance gains over the A13 on paper. Everywhere from image compression to speech recognition, the A14 processor is going to be a bit faster, and while the A13 felt far from sluggish, this is an even faster platform. Here we are taking a look at gaming performance on the iPhone 12 Pro. We're playing an Apple arcade game here. This is Samurai Jack, and it's running at a full 60 frames per second pretty much the entire time I'm playing, even as I'm running around, switching the camera around, slashing objects. It's a pretty smooth game to play, and I overall had a really nice experience playing this game on the iPhone 12 Pro. And playing this game really does make me think about the lack of a 120Hz refresh rate on this display that a lot of people hoped for the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max. Unfortunately, we did not get it, but when playing this game in 60 frames per second, I don't really feel like I'm missing out all too much, and although it would be nice to have a higher refresh rate display in the iPhone, I think this will do until next year. If you weren't a fan of the 64GB base storage option on the iPhone 11 Pro, then you'll be happy to hear that you get 120GB to start, which is much more appropriate for an $1,000 smartphone in my opinion. In addition to that, Apple bumped up the RAM from 4GB in the 11 Pros to 6GB here in the 12 Pro. This is very much going to help with multitasking and using more intensive applications. I don't feel as though 4GB of RAM in the 11 Pro was a bottleneck by any means, but having an extra 2GB definitely gives you more confidence in the device's long-term performance capability. A year ago, I wouldn't have guessed that my next iPhone would have MagSafe on it, but here we are. MagSafe has made its return on the iPhone 12, and generally speaking, while this is going to open up a whole new world for accessories, MagSafe doesn't really provide any features or benefits I feel I can be without in its current form. The idea of MagSafe is that you're taking away the inconveniences of standard wireless charging by using magnetization. And while this isn't necessarily a game changer in its current form, it very much has potential to be a lot bigger in the future with better accessories. This is something I'll get into a bit more in my full review. Something I immediately noticed when using the MagSafe charger is this new charging animation. It seems as though this is only something you'll see on MagSafe enabled devices, as I never get this charging animation when using it on my 11 Pro Max. Not a big deal, but something to take note of. Some people want to know exactly how strong MagSafe is, so here I am holding the charger by the cable, swinging the phone back and forth. And I wouldn't feel confident holding this over the edge of a building per se, but it's strong enough for the use of accessories, and as a secondary means of charging, it's fairly reliable as far as strength. And through MagSafe charging, the 12 Pro is able to charge at up to 15 watts of power, which is a notable improvement over the 7.5 watts you get in standard Qi wireless charging on the iPhones. And although I find it to be extremely odd that MagSafe can do up to 15 and Qi can still only do 7.5 watts on the iPhone 12, 15 watts is going to be plenty for most people who aren't in a rush for a quick charge. Although we're not exactly getting a true 15 watt charge here in the MagSafe charger, but like I said, we're gonna save that for the full review. One of the first MagSafe accessories to be released by Apple is this silicone case, and even before the phone makes contact with the device, you can kind of feel that magnetization. And when you connect the case to the phone on the lock screen, you're actually going to get a chime and an animation with a color corresponding with the color case you've got, which is pretty cool. When I connected this blue case to my iPhone for the first time and saw this blue animation, I wasn't exactly sure if the two had anything to do with one another, so I hit up a friend who had a purple case and he got a purple animation when putting it on his blue iPhone, which is pretty cool. I didn't think MagSafe could carry over that kind of information, but it's cool to see, and I can only imagine what it'll be like for third-party MagSafe cases in the future implementing this sort of stuff. With every iPhone update, it's tradition to expect some upgrades in the camera department, and the 12 Pro is no different in this regard. The iPhone 12 Pro features the same triple lens camera setup as the 11 Pro, with the only hardware differences we're getting this year is an f1.6 primary lens instead of an f1.8 primary lens on the 11 Pro. I took quite a few photos to determine whether the 12 Pro is noticeably better than the 11 Pro, and I'd say it can be, depending on the environment, but general image quality of the 12 Pro is not really noticeably better than the 11 Pro in my testing. Dynamic range and low light seems to be the biggest advantage of the 12 Pro over the 11 Pro for photos. They've improved low light performance in the iPhone 12 Pro's camera a lot. Brightness and noise are definitely handled much better on the 12 Pro a majority of the time, as you've now got the night mode feature for all three lenses. And not only does the 12 Pro now feature night mode on all three rear cameras, you've now got it on the front-facing camera as well, meaning you can do portraits using night mode. This dramatically improves exposure levels and photos taken in low light, and can really save some poorly lit selfies. The iPhone 12 Pro is the first Apple product outside of the iPad Pro to feature the LiDAR Scanner. This little sensor is really important for improving augmented reality experiences within games, measurement utilities, and the list goes on. The LiDAR scanner measures depth by using invisible light rays to measure the distance between the sensor and any particular object. And all of this is really important for having realistic representations of what something on your phone may look like in your living room, for example. The LiDAR scanner is not only going to help with augmented reality performance, but general photography as well. The LiDAR scanner is going to improve autofocus performance, helping you track your subjects better in lower lighting conditions. This is especially useful for taking low light portraits, which is very enjoyable on this camera setup. The iPhone 12 and 12 Pro are now capable of shooting 10-bit DolbyVision HDR video in 4K at up to 60 frames per second, which is a first for any smartphone. Shooting 10-bit video as opposed to 8-bit video is going to help with preserving a lot more color data, and HDR video, as you may know, is being implemented into almost every display in some form. True Dolby Vision isn't supported by the majority of displays on the market, and even Apple's own Final Cut Pro doesn't support Dolby Vision HDR video editing just yet. So just like the 5G in this phone, this isn't something you'll be able to take full advantage of right now. But I will say from my initial impressions, even on the iPhone itself, looking at the screen, the video quality looks noticeably better than on the 11 Pro. Dynamic range specifically has seen an improvement. Overall, the video prowess on the 12 Pro is awesome as expected. And stay tuned for our full review to get our full thoughts on the iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max's camera. The iPhone 12 Pro features support for sub-6 and millimeter wave 5G, which are going to be the most common forms of 5G you're likely to see going forward. But 5G simply doesn't have enough nationwide coverage for this to be really something worth talking about, unfortunately. But if you happen to be in the perfect position of both relying heavily on fast data and living in a fully covered 5G area, which you probably don't, then the iPhone 12 Pro is going to be the phone to get for sure. When in ideal conditions, the potential of 5G is crazy, and when 5G is everywhere, this will be awesome, but it's going to be years before we're seeing that speed in most areas. And that's really all there is to it. With support for 5G, you're going to get slightly faster 5G speeds. In fact, it should be pretty noticeable, but it isn't the drastic increase in speeds that you're supposed to be getting from millimeter wave 5G. In the settings, there's an option to choose between 5G on and 5G auto. With 5G on enabled, the phone will essentially be utilizing the 5G radio whenever it can. 5G auto will automatically enable and disable 5G, depending on how badly it's affecting your battery life. My advice would be to just leave it in 5G auto. It'll definitely help the battery life somewhat. Overall, the iPhone 12 Pro has a lot of nice additions. The potential of MagSafe with future accessories, the amazing feel in the hand with the updated design, and the improved camera features that further refine an already amazing shooting experience. But is it worth the $999? Well, make sure to subscribe to 9 to 5 Mac to find out in our full review coming pretty soon. There's still a lot more testing we need to do, and we're still waiting to get our hands on the iPhone 12 Pro Max next month. There are a handful of differences between that phone and the standard 12 Pro, especially for video and photos. But we've got a lot of thoughts, and we've got a lot more content coming soon. So if you enjoyed this one, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that bell so you're notified when we upload something new. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Special thanks to iMazing for sponsoring 9 to 5 Mac. iMazing is made by Apple fans and it's already fully compatible with iOS 14, iPadOS 14, and it's ready for macOS, Big Sur, and Apple Silicone. Use it to do things like easily transfer music and videos to your devices or download and install iOS apps and manage an app library right on your desktop. Click the link in the description to get 30% off iMazing for a limited time.